group of 7 could become the group of 8 or even 9 if Trump has anything to say about it. The president suggested yesterday at the G7 summit that Russia and China should be part of the organization. Take a listen.
If somebody wants to suggest China coming in, I think we suggest, but you want to have people that you can talk to. You know, they don't talk. Putin speaks to me. He doesn't speak to anybody else. He doesn't want to talk because he was very insulted when he got thrown out of the G8. As I would be, as you would be, as anybody would be. He was very insulted. And, I mean, he was thrown out by Trudeau, who convinced 1 or 2 people, along with Obama. If he were a member of what was called the G8 at that time, it was always the G8, you wouldn't have a war right now.
Now, many online pointed out that Trudeau was not actually prime minister when Russia was kicked out of the G8.
Several journalists also highlighting that the decision by the group to remove Russia was precisely because of an attack on Ukraine. LA Times columnist Jackie Combs posting on X, quote, Trump again embarrasses himself and the U.S. on the world stage. He either doesn't know or doesn't care that Russia was thrown out of the G8 in 2014 after it forcibly annexed Ukraine's Crimea, violating a 1994 accord among Russia, the U.S., and UK to guarantee Ukraine's security.
Some in Trump's party are not on board with bringing Putin back into the group. Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon wrote, keep the G7, not the G8. Russia should not be part of this forum until it stops its invasion of Ukraine and pulls out of areas it occupies. War criminal Putin deserves to be ostracized. But look, my response to this idea, this notion, but that ostracism doesn't work. It's like, oh, we kicked him out to punish him, and then he invaded Ukraine anyway.
Okay,
so how does that a good idea?
Work because he invaded Crimea and annexed it in 2014 when he was in it. That's why they kicked him out. So both don't work.
Well, now he's invaded the whole country.
Well, both don't work. So that's, the argument is not works much better. I think that there was a message. This wasn't just symbolic. It's saying like coercion and territorial conquests are not allowed in this conversation. And so that was a lesson for you. Trump said he was offended. Well, you should be offended. You're offending the rest of the country by violating agreements that you had with the UK and US. And again, the message worldwide is that the US, the UK, and other leaders do not allow dictators to just run rampant and do whatever they want. And that's why there's sanctions by other countries and pushback. And so maybe having him in didn't change anything.
Doing whatever they want.
I know, but he was doing whatever he wanted in 2014.
Maybe we've had enough stick and we should try out a little bit of carrot. What if this is just, coming up with ideas here. What if we offer him membership in what would then be the G8 in exchange for doing peace negotiations with Ukraine?
Well, at the time when he was kicked out, the leaders in Russia were like, we don't care. I'm summing up and paraphrasing, but they were like, "What? We don't care if we're kicked out of this." So I don't know that offering him this membership back is going to change anything.
Wouldn't it be
I
better
also think it sends a bigger message that we are legitimizing authoritarianism.
No,
yes, we are. No. If we add China and Russia back into this conversation,
we can't pretend they don't exist. We can't put our hands over our ears and say, "There's no such thing as Russia and China. We hate them so much." It's not doing anything.
Yeah, but we can't also say, you're welcome back. This is the perfect time while you're committing more crimes. Please come on back.
I think they're going to be committing more crimes regardless, but I think if world leaders are talking to each other, it is more likely that tensions will de-escalate. I think if they're not talking to each other or they're only talking to Trump, that's good for us, good for Trump, but I don't think that's good for their countries.
Well, now Trump had several now, at this point, 3 different phone calls with Russia and, hasn't really made mountains move. And so, even if he was in G7, I'm not sure that anything else would change. And so that Trump is always making big statements and big promises. If he has the keys and he is the great negotiator, right, that many people in MAGA believe he is, then he should be able to get this deal done without the rest of the 6 people in the G7, right? The 6 leaders. He doesn't need them. He is the greatest negotiator of our time, right?
It would be good for stability in Europe if the leaders of Europe and Putin were able to talk to each other. I think that it's just obvious to me that would be no worse than the situation we're in now, and it might be better. You're right. It could be the case that there's nothing anyone can do to, at this point, talk Putin out of conquering all of Ukraine because it's gotten to this stage. That's why I advocated diplomacy between the 2 nations before it got to this stage. Under the Biden administration, which did not have that view, had the view that Ukraine could somehow defeat Russia and we should keep arming them and keep supplying them and keep encouraging them to do that. Boris Johnson, a former Prime Minister of the UK, he's the one who really encouraged Zelensky to go for fight them. Don't do diplomacy, you should fight them. We see how that turned out, not great. Maybe if the leader of the UK and the leader of Russia were having dialogue, that wouldn't have taken place because it really to my mind, doomed Ukraine. Now we're in a situation where perhaps not even Trump, the world's greatest negotiator and deal maker, there might be no deal he can offer that is more appealing to Putin than just taking the whole country. That is an unfortunate reality we're in.
It's not about personal relationships. It's about global rules, and Russia is breaking them. They were in 2014, and they are now. And so kicking them out is like rules are for. So we shouldn't have any rules. We should just let everybody do whatever they want.
But we don't.
Because that's
we don't
basically
follow rules.
if Ukraine accepts Russia's terms, we are telling all dictators, have carte blanche, do whatever you like, carry on.
We overthrew. The reason we're in this situation with Iran is because decades ago we overthrew their government to reestablish. We overthrew their democratically elected government to put the Shah of Iran in power, and that led eventually to the Islamic Revolution, where now we have Islamic extremists who run the country. Like, we're not, we've meddled, we've overthrown governments we didn't like, we do bad stuff. There's like this we're perfect, and I don't like the leftist view that America is the most evil, country on earth, and our government is evil, and we've never done anything right, and everyone else is so wonderful. It's a messy world, and we've done some sketchy stuff, and so have they, and I think that should be the understanding.
I think it's necessary to engage with your adversaries, but you don't have to include them in a club that kind of allows everybody to have real dialogue, like there's actual listening going on. So at the same time that we're seeing like Canadian leadership with Trump, who also said, oh, we'd like you to be a 51st state. Like, okay, they're still having dialogue. It's not to the point that Trump did something so egregious that he shouldn't be there. Now, if we bombed Canada, that would be problematic, right? We should also be thrown out of the G7 or G8 at the time. So these are way different things. To be allowing somebody into the conversation that's doing something to that magnitude, I think it's different. Having a conversation and all the world leaders coming to the table, hopefully that's what they're doing anyway. But being at these summits where we're gathering and sharing ideas to talk about the betterment of the world when you're busy taking over territories, killing people, committing war crimes, I don't think it's the time or the place to be there. So that was a step and an action taken. I don't think it should be reversed, but I also think people, all leaders, Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. specifically, should figure out better ways to deal and engage with Russia, because both obviously didn't work.
Trump, by the way, left the summit early to return to the U.S. Because he wanted to be present in the Situation Room to more directly address the Israel-Iran issue, which goes to show that the problems right now in the Middle East are distracting from the Russia-Ukraine war and vice versa. There's a lot going on, a lot to handle. It's a very dangerous, scary situation.
Next up on Rising, Senator Mike Lee is facing backlash for a tweet about the deadly shooting of 2 Minnesota lawmakers and their spouses.